I'm Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research, and I've decided to do this special video podcast series to celebrate the holidays and have a little bit of fun based on the year that we've had. This is day one of the 12 days of Cloudmas, and so I think what my true love gave to me was a partridge in a pear tree. Unless you like the Bob and Doug version, then it was a beer in a tree. They also gave me Brian Gilman from Vonage. So Brian, why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hey Zeus, how you doing? Nice to see you again. Actually, it's been a while since we've been together last.
Yeah, so why don't you tell everybody a little bit of what you do at Vonage?
Sure. I'm the Vice President of Product Marketing at Vonage. I handle all three solutions portfolios for the business. Our applications business, which covers our unified communications and our contact center portfolios, as well as our communications API business.
Oh, that's great. So you mentioned the unified communications product, and we're actually using the Vonage Meetings product. And while a lot of your competitors have gotten a lot of notoriety for their use during the pandemic, you actually have a very feature-rich meetings product. And in fact, I've used it sometimes, and I was blown away by the capability it has. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Vonage Meetings and what it does?
Sure. Here we are, Vonage Meetings. We launched this platform in early 2020. It is built off of the Vonage API platform. It is a fully featured enterprise-grade video conferencing, video collaboration platform that sits within the Vonage, the VBC portfolio.
All right, and from what I understand, it's actually built off your API platform. I want to talk about APIs in a minute, but explain why that's important. I know a few years ago, you bought a company called Nexmo, which gave you a very rich API platform, and this has replaced the older platform that you had.
Correct. So for us, when we acquired the assets that you talked about earlier, when we acquired Nexmo back several years ago now, we felt that owning the API business was incredibly important. One, to address the needs of individual customers who wanted to go and build embedded communications solutions, but we also felt it would give us a strategic advantage to go, as we micro-architected our applications business, to leverage those same APIs that we're selling individually to customers for us to go and build off of ourselves. So we can build once, sell twice, and we feel that it gives us the flexibility and the scalability to be quicker, more nimble than we would otherwise.
Well, that's great. And I want to stay on the API platform. I know from following Vonage, and I follow you guys pretty close, and reading the earnings transcripts, the API business itself, since the pandemic started, has taken off like a rocket, particularly the video API side. And I think this is something I'm not sure the industry really understands, that everybody is focused on the meetings, right? Because we're all working from home. But APIs provide a tremendous amount of value as well. And so explain why that is and what it's being used for.
Yeah, I think there was a funny shift early on in the pandemic. I think a lot of the off-the-shelf video collaboration platforms, the Zooms of the world, got an unfair share of the headlines that took place. I think one, it was because they could very easily offer it for free, as we and several other vendors did in the space, to customers to go and use, to speak with colleagues, to speak with family members, et cetera. But I think what we started to see as businesses started to make the transition, and I think there's an interesting dialogue that talks about customer consumption during the pandemic, as it went from the immediacy of wanting to be face-to-face with employees and with colleagues. It changed, and it was, how do businesses start to change to interact with their customers more? And you started to see issues like telehealth come front and center, as hospitals and doctors started to scramble to figure out how do we address this change in consumption, which is going to be longer than what we thought was going to be, a 3-week lockdown. Yeah. 3 weeks now became 10 months, and off-the-shelf video solutions weren't going to solve for all of those use cases. And that's why for us, once again, having that video API to build something as elegant as this, but also to allow for those telehealth applications, those service delivery applications, was incredibly important for us.
So if I understand correctly, it actually allows companies to build communications around their workflows versus having to reorient the workflows to fit the communications.
Correct. And it also, it allows for a lot of other, when you think about it, when you can build off of the API and you can build it into your workflow, it solves for a lot of the security, regulatory, compliance issues that you would need in order to serve some of those regulated markets that we just discussed.
Yeah, and this isn't just a B2B thing, right? You guys have a lot of companies that do B2C as well. In fact, I think some of your customers, I highlighted one in a Forbes article, Peloton, people probably have no idea that that's Vonage under the cover. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And what we found was that one of the largest growing areas for our video API usage during the crisis was actually social. And social spans a wide variety of different platforms, but you start to think about the need for people to communicate. It wasn't only a B2B problem. It was a consumer. It was a consumer play as well. People wanted to speak to people regardless of where they were, and it didn't always involve a business in that interaction.
Yeah, well, as an analyst, I follow, obviously, I try and predict trends out. And certainly, I think the one thing the pandemic has brought this world is broad scale use of video of all different types. And so I certainly think that this wave we've seen of video usage isn't going away anytime soon. And so it's not just meetings, as you said, it's meetings, it's video of all different types. So it's really exciting what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited about it. And it's something that we've seen for a while. And it's funny, I've been in the business long enough where we talked about telehealth 10 years ago, and it was always this up and to the right type of trajectory, and all it took was a global pandemic to get us here.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now we're here. Now,
exactly.
We are at the end of 2020. It is the holiday season, and so the holidays always mean that you're decking the halls and things like that. But you're also probably being asked for some predictions, and so. I'm going to ask you for one. What do you think? Give me a prediction of what you think we're going to see in 2021.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about talked about it earlier. We're well past the days of worrying about keeping the lights on in terms of communications with what we've had in the past year. What I think we've seen now is a permanent shift in how consumers are consuming, and as a result, I think business models are going to change dramatically to address fundamental shifts in consumption. And as a result, while a lot of businesses dealt with applications, how do I think about my voice, my contact center, my UC, how do I think about my APIs as a separate entity? I think companies now are fundamentally going to have to start to think more collectively about that, and how they choose their vendors is going to change dramatically in terms of who can provide them with those holistic solutions. When we think about the contact center, I think the contact center is going to be the core of most businesses today. But voice has fundamentally shifted in terms of really massive changes in call volume spikes. APIs, secondary and tertiary channels, which may not have been as important to businesses, are going to have to be front and center, as people are going to have to shift how they address the customers who are not necessarily going to want to pick up a phone anymore, because chat or SMS or whatever other channels, social, are going to become more prominent. And so I think businesses have to think more holistically about communications, and applications and APIs are going to become more of a unified conversation than they were in the past.
Oh, well, that'll be a pretty interesting shift for the industry, because I believe most of the vendors in the cloud communication space don't have that single back end. They're actually built on a collection of products or partnerships. So if that happens in 2021, that should create quite a bit of disruption in an industry that's already seen a lot of disruption. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a lot of disruption, and I think that the thing that's pushing this shift is that while voice is still the primary channel that people want to interact with, even today, 10 months after the fact, I can't tell you how many times I'll call a business and you're dealing with a 45-minute wait, or due to high call volumes, call back later. And what businesses haven't thought through is that secondary channel with which a consumer would want to interact. Is that synchronous or asynchronous, which means SMS maybe, or chat versus email? And I think those are going to be the decisions that start to marry that conversation more than where we're at in the business today.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Single platform coming in 2021. I want to thank Brian Gilman, who is my partridge in a pear tree on my first day of Cloudmas. This is Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research, and I want to thank Brian again from Vonage. Happy holidays to everybody.